Okay, welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. As the United Kingdom, the UK government today is being investigated over their authoritarian nature by the United States or the US State Department under direction from US President Trump. No, this is not a joke. This is absolutely 100% true. We have got a lot of news to cover, a lot of stories today. And as always, there'll only be the interesting stories, not the boring stuff. We're then going to talk about what the ECB chief has just done. Again, President Trump is furious after what she's just said about the US dollar. Raid on pensions, UK pension raid coming up. What's happening as an impact of the prisoner release, congestion charges. Gosh, we have got a lot to talk about. But first, before we start with the biggest story, I saw this on the Financial Times today, and there's two things interesting about this story that came out today. Number one is that the new Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, has gone to see the King of England for, well, it seems like moral support. Drop in the comments what you think. But he's looking for support from the King over what's going on with Canada. And of course, President Trump is again talking about Canada becoming the 51st state. But the thing that I thought was really interesting was, if you recall a week ago today, yes it was the 21st of May, Wednesday 21st of May, I was talking about these bond issuances and how this is a massive, enormous thing that's about to take place, but it's not even on any of the papers. I said it should be on every front page. Well, it's only taken a week and now it is. And this is really talking about a global sell-off in government debt about to cause this huge crisis is what they are talking about now. So it's finally sort of hitting the media. But let's get started then with the biggest story of the day. And this is President Donald Trump has sent a free speech squad, to the UK to investigate the erosion of citizens' rights. So he dispatched a State Department official, a team of 5 people, to the UK to monitor and investigate the growing attacks on freedom of speech by the British government. So they went there and they interviewed a number of people who have either been arrested, they've been released. These are either activists, anything from people silently praying. You know this one. This is outside abortion clinics and hospitals and all sorts of other things, through to other places. The report then so far, we haven't got the whole thing, but the initial report, this is from the US Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor, the DRL, said they met with 5 activists who had been arrested for silently protesting or silently praying across Britain. The visit demonstrates that Trump is acutely aware of the threat to freedom that is growing in the UK, and he is willing to intervene in British affairs as required. It says the activists were all arrested for standing in public spaces and praying. The UK government introduced a new law creating buffer zones outside of these areas to stop activists from praying in these areas. Some people breached that, obviously, and they were arrested. Just crazy world that we live in. This report says one of the interviews, they have the transcript here. I was arrested for standing there peacefully. I was only praying in my head outside. So that was one. We know about this case anyway. We've talked about it before. The officials are also said to have met with officials from the Foreign Office. So this is the UK Foreign Office here, challenging the telecom Ofcom regulator. So Ofcom is who regulates all the communications in the UK. And they've challenged this Online Safety Act, which we talked about a while back. I know I read all of your comments on what you thought, because we knew where this was going. It was going towards censorship. That is where it was going. We knew it was going there, and now we have the proof. So the State Department officials who have read the have read the Online Safety Act have said that the UK government is using it to enforce censorship and punishing those expressing opinions deemed to be hateful by the authorities. So they're calling it hate speech, but actually it's just their views are different to the very left government that we have at the moment. Trump's officials are also reportedly monitoring the case of Lucy Connolly. We've talked about Lucy Connolly a lot of times on the channel here. This is the lady, the mother, who was imprisoned and denied early access because she made a tweet, an X post, where she called for action to be taken against illegal migrants, where we know what actually happened there. Again, you've always got to take everything into context. If you just read the BBC report today, you'll think she was some hateful, crazy woman just going out. No, that was because of the incident, shall we say. We all know what happened, the Southport incident, where those, tragically, those children, well, we won't go into all that. We know what happened there. So that was the context behind it. So the US has said that they support freedom of expression at home and abroad and remain concerned about the infringements on freedom of expression. So their full report is going to follow once they have sort of briefed President Trump on their findings. UK government is not happy. They didn't authorize, it's quite funny when you read this, they didn't authorize the US government to come and do this investigation. Well, they don't have to. If they want to come and do an investigation on freedoms and freedom of speech, they're more than welcome. I'm sure all of us as citizens are very happy that they did. Let's go on to the next big story then. And this was the EC, and please drop comments as you go through. I will read the comments. ECB chief, as usual, it's always either Lagarde or Ursula, isn't it? It's these two individuals. She has now called for a stronger role of the euro and said that the US dollar is in decline. She said, so this was European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde, on Monday called for a greater international role of the euro, warning that the global dominance of the US dollar is ending and it's just inevitable. It's now on a downward decline. What a thing. Let's just talk about that for a second. You've got Ursula, who has just pleaded with President Trump, please, Mr. Trump, President Trump, give us an extension, don't put this 50% tariff on. And he says, oh, okay, fine, I won't put this 50% tariff on. But you need to get to the negotiating table. Oh yes, President Trump, we'll do it, oh yes. And then Lagarde, her counterparty, has then come out the very next day and just went on this massive attack against the US dollar. It's weakening, it's declining, it's crashing. So look at the euro. We need more, everyone should be looking at the euro for trade. I mean, that is pretty outrageous. I'm sure if President Trump sees that, he's going to be pretty angry. Let's see what she said then. The changing landscape could open the door for the euro to play a greater international role. She outlined the benefits of the euro's global role over the dollar, including lower borrowing costs, this is for governments and businesses, and stronger internal demand, more economic resilience. It would allow Europe to better control its own destiny. So let's just change one word there. It would allow Europe to better control its own people. Let's use the word people, because that's what they want to do. It's a very clever case. They must have some great psychologists and PR sort of agencies on this, the top in the world, I would have thought, to get people to be more people adopting the euro, which is what they want. And then we already know what's about to happen. They're going to turn it into a digital euro. That is what they're about to do, turn it into a digital euro, and then you're trapped in the system. Good luck transferring digital euros out into other currencies. You'll be completely trapped within one single ecosystem, which is programmable in nature, and they can do pretty much whatever they want to it. Although the euro currently accounts for only 20% of global foreign exchange reserves, it makes it the world's second most used currency after the dollar. Lagarde cautions that it will not gain influence by default and we're all in it together. They love this, don't they? They all they always say this, we're all in it together. Lagarde noted that the US dollar's share in global foreign exchange reserve has fallen to its lowest level since 1994 as gold has been accumulated by central banks worldwide. Now, I thought this was really interesting that she talked about gold being accumulated, because what have we just released here on the channel in the last week? And that is the new program. So just a reminder, if you haven't already, you can see the link below. It will be in the description, or I'll pin a comment so you can check that out. And yeah, do me a favor, do yourself a favor, just have a look at that. I'm not saying that everyone should enroll in it, but have a look at it and see if you think it's right for you to protect what you're doing, because we'll come on to pensions in a minute. And it's just like I said the other day, they are just doing this massive raid on pensions. It is absolutely relentless. And this is the program, by the way, the bundle. You can have a look at this. It's absolutely enormous. It's a huge, huge bundle to help you if you want to manage your own IRA, you want to manage your own SIP, whatever it is that you want to do, that is possible through the program. You'll learn how to do all these strategies. We've got some of the world's best experts in each field as well coming in, flying to the island here. We're going to be doing, we've already conducted some interviews, we've got more interviews. So these are, just incredible people. I was amazed that they were willing to come in. They just asked in return, can they come and see the castle for the day? Yeah, sure. If that's going to get you to fly here for an interview, please come along. So it's going to be amazing anyway what we're doing. So have a look at the program, and the pre-filming sale is still on. The chapter 4 and 5, modules 4 and 5 will be released this Saturday for everybody taking the program. But yeah, highly, highly recommend it. Still 90% off for the pre-sale until the course is ready. Let's move on to the next article then. This is HMRC plans for tax raid on pensions. This is a big, big one. Again, it's so interesting, the things we talk about. It seems to be at the minute, a week later, they tend to happen. We talked about the bonds issue. We talked about the Japan issue. We talked about the gold accumulation a long time ago. And now the gold, everyone's accumulating gold at the minute. It seems to be a big one. People are starting to put it into their pensions. People are starting to listen around, some of the warnings I gave. The amount of emails I had this week saying, Neil, I can't believe that I looked into some of the things you mentioned on pensions and it was true. I can't believe I looked into the bank bail-in laws that you talked about, and they're true. I can't believe that the gold I had held in a vault in the bank can be also confiscated and liquidated. Yeah, these things are true, ladies and gentlemen. I don't just make things up. So let's go on to the next one. HMRC plans for tax raid on pensions then. Millions of pension savers are at risk of a stealth tax raid under the new proposals. This is the workplace retirement schemes. This is coming, ladies and gents. HMRC is exploring a shake-up of the salary sacrifice systems used by employees at around half of British companies. Half, ladies and gents, half of British companies. They're looking into this. This is not going to work out in your favor. The money could be used, your money could be used to plug the black hole in the public finances, estimated at tens of billions of pounds, left by the Chancellor's October budget, and they're also blaming tariffs by President Trump. It's interesting that they always say left by Trump. They never say Donald Trump, President Trump. They always just say Trump. I think that's very interesting, because they would always say President Joe Biden, President Biden. But when it comes to President Trump, they just say Trump. Interesting. But the reforms could cost the average earner more than £500 a year in extra tax and national insurance, significantly reducing the size of your pension pot. It says it here in black and white. This has actually come out. This is unbelievable that they're telling you this stuff. The National Institute of Economic and Social Research, NIESR, this is a think tank, warned on Tuesday, so just yesterday evening, that the Chancellor could have to raise taxes by up to £30 billion in a few months' time in the autumn budget. And they're looking at how they're going to do this and how they're going to raise the money from the people. But this is a big one. They're looking at your pension pots. Yeah, this reminds me actually, do you remember the video we talked about with the European Union? And they said they're going to be diving into all the European citizens' savings accounts and using that for this 800 billion euros or 900 billion euros for the war fund, the slush fund for war. It reminds me of that a little bit, except this is for pensions. Even a lot of the members of parliament are calling on Keir Starmer not to go ahead or to rein in Rachel Reeves and not allow her to do this. But they said the debt must be projected to fall as a percentage of GDP in 5 years' time, or it's just going to, they can't figure out how they're going to stop this debt crisis. One more point on this article. The rising number of people earning just under £100,000 is also rising as people look to restrict their earnings with 4-day weeks, more holidays and higher pension contributions. That's interesting. So I started to look into that, and I started to look at the tax charts as well, the tables, and I can see why this is happening, why a lot of people are starting to do 4-day weeks now, why they're taking more holiday time. And it's because currently, if you earn over that amount or over certain amounts, it can lead to paying an effective income tax rate of 60% and losing their entitlement to free childcare. And you remember, I mean, it's no surprise, I talked about how I was paying 72% in tax when before I had to restructure all of my stuff. It's just crazy. The taxes are just going up and up and up, and they're not doing anything about the debt levels. There's so much they can do, but they're just not willing to do any of this. They're just not willing to take care of a lot of this. We have then the UK's most senior police, and again, this is why it's up to you. It's up to you to take control of your own finances, your own pensions, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. Don't just rely on a financial advisor or some sort of investment firm. Yes, most of them are good. I'll say that. A lot of them are good. They are. But we saw what happened in 2008, where when things got bad, it was just a rug pull. It was every man for himself. It was just like the life rafts are going, and if you're left behind, that's it. Sorry. And there will come a time when this happens again. This is not anything crazy to say this. You know yourself that this time is coming. You can see it. You can see the breakdown. We can see the fourth turning cycle. You see what's happening with politics. You're seeing the shifts, the extreme swings that we've seen. It's just crazy how we're seeing these shifts. It used to be very central, and we sort of dip either way a little bit. Now we're going from here across to here across to. It's just like all over the place at the minute. But reading history, that is what tends to happen. It is what has to happen. You have to have these very strong swings before it balances out. Let's go on to the next article then. The UK's most senior police officer has openly criticised the government over the early release scheme of prisoners. He is just saying that this is crazy, basically. Crime, the police can't, he's basically saying we can't handle the amount of crime. He's openly coming out and saying this. It's like, we just can't handle this amount of crime. He said every time you put an offender into the community, a proportion of them will commit crime, and then we need to chase them down, and we don't have the resources. He said the decision was made without any analysis of the impact of policing whatsoever. They weren't consulted, and the police forces were still waiting for the government information on the type of offenders that were being released. They didn't even tell the police. They didn't tell the other services. He said, we've asked the Ministry of Justice for the data so that we can understand the exact detail of the type of offenders being released. He said that the police force is at the same size it was 15 years ago. They don't have the resources at all. And by the way, not that I'm a fan of this guy. We've talked about him before. Oh, sorry, I forgot that banner was still on the screen. Let me take that off now. We've talked about him before. I'm not his biggest fan, but increasing public demand, growing social volatility, yeah, breakdown in society, and new serious unorganized crime syndicates that have entered the country have emboldened these criminals, he said. The Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has agreed to allow criminals, including violent sexual offenders, to be released early. She has also agreed to scrap sentences of less than 12 months. So anyone who commits a crime and gets sentenced for just under 12 months will serve the time in the community instead. Doesn't seem like much of a punishment to me. You can go out and commit a crime and then you just serve your time in the community. By the way, I doubt you can hear the noise outside, but we have the Isle of Man TT races that begin this weekend. So the trials are going on and my property is right on the track. So as soon as we finish streaming here, I'm going to go and watch the races. But if you can hear the noise, it's some extremely powerful motorbikes, and there's a helicopter above my house as well. So the government, he says, we're building, okay, here's what they said. The government inherited this crisis close to collapse. He said, if we allow all these prisoners not to be released, or we have more prisoners coming in, the entire system will collapse. And he said, we'll never put the public at risk by running out of prison places again. And this is just a short-term solution, but they're going to find something longer term later. So it's interesting. They know it's going to cause danger to society and the people, but they're going to do it anyway. And then building 14,000 new prison places. So this is a good thing by 2031. This is the largest expansion since the Victorian era. But again, you look at the cost of these prisons, and if you remember, we talked about this before, the cost of these prisons are absolutely, I'm just looking at the live chat. People are going to come and knock on the door and watch the races. Okay, yeah, I know, these bikes are insane, the speed they go around. You blink and they've gone by. We also have the congestion charge set to rise again. This is, I'm sorry for all of you that live in London. I really am, with what you have to put up with this congestion charge and everything else. It's about to go up by 20% to £18. And it gets worse than this. This is daily. If you're outside the UK, this is daily. People have to. But by the way, I've got to say that Siddiqui Khan did me a massive favor last week, because I was looking for a new car, and this guy basically, he was giving away this beautiful brand new car, a diesel, because he didn't know he couldn't drive it in central London without paying. So I got it for a ridiculously low price. So thank you to Siddiqui Khan for my new car, my new diesel. But this is terrible. Really, I mean, I'm laughing, but it's terrible what's going on here. As of the 2nd of January, the daily £15 for drivers just in central London, this doesn't include the ULEZ, okay? This is just the central London, is going up by 30%. Okay, so it went up by 30% in June 2020 to 11, okay, it went from 11.50 to 15. Now it's going up even more to 18. And if you don't pay it within 48 hours, you get a penalty of £180. And this just makes me laugh at the ridiculousness of this. So you remember we did an investigation. You can watch that if you haven't seen it, where I investigated where the money goes, and the money disappears. It disappears. You follow it to a certain point, and then it disappears into the Mayor of London's fund. Well, where does it go? The Freedom of Information request, they won't answer. They won't tell you where it goes. Please do an FOI request yourself, and then drop it in the comments what they said to you. It doesn't go any further. You can't see where this money goes. And this scheme operates between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays and 12 and 6 on weekends. Drivers, though, of electric cars, so remember it was all about the electric cars. If you have an electric car, you'll be exempt. Well, drivers who currently travel free in the zone will now receive a 25% discount provided they are registered for auto pay. So again, the whole thing's just a massive scam. Then They said the increase will be effective in managing traffic and congestion in central London, air quality, all the rest of the stuff. And by the way, ladies and gents, I'm all for health and good air quality and all this sort of stuff. Don't get me wrong, truly. But you know, they did all these studies. You can read all these independent studies on the difference it made, and it really didn't make a huge impact. Like the PM, it's the PM 2.5. They're the super small particles. It was something like 10 or 20 times more dangerous before all this clean air stuff came in on the underground than it was above ground. So you can see it's just nonsense, because why would they allow these levels to be 10, 20 times higher and dangerous in the underground? They're not doing anything about that. They're not fitting extractors and removing, doing any of that. No, they're not doing any of that. But yet they want to make hundreds of millions from cars on the surface who they say it was all for emissions, and now they're taxing the electric cars. I mean, it's obvious. It's obvious to anyone with a brain. So currently these motorists pay nothing to drive in central London, talking about electric cars, but from January they'll be required to be registered and pay £13.50 per day. But it's not just these, remember, it's not just the congestion charge, it's also ULEZ. This is the, what does that stand for again? Ultra low emission zone, that's what it is. And it was meant to be just central London. It's all of London now. It's like Greater London is this one big zone. Is ULEZ affected? Nope. Drivers of older, extremely polluting vehicles already pay £12.50 to travel anywhere within ULEZ, which was expanded to cover all of London's boroughs in August 2023. So what does this mean? It says it in black and white. That means if you drive in London, it will cost you £30.50 per day. Per day. How can anyone, unless you're rich, afford to pay £30 a day? Can someone please answer that in the comments? Is that, I just can't even get my head around that. £30 a day just to drive your own car in London. It's crazy. And it says, on top of this, if you use the Silvertown or Blackwall tunnels, it's again another £4 each way, so it's another £8. So it would be £38.50 per day. What's been the reaction then? Oh, I love the way the BBC, oh yes, people think this is very positive. Everyone's happy about it. No, they're not. It's nonsense, BBC, propaganda as usual. We have got one honest point out of their article. Michael Lloyd, the FSB's London Infrastructure Champion, so this is the Federation of Small Businesses, said many businesses, particularly in sectors where margins are tight, will not be able to absorb the extra costs. True, that is absolutely correct. But we did have some slightly positive news out just in the last few hours. Again, it's not really positive. It's just the International Mafia Fund, the IMF, raising UK growth forecast by almost nothing. I mean, it's by 0.1%, but this is front page news everywhere. You would think that front page news would be to do with the bonds, your pensions, your savings. No, it's that it's been increased by 0.2%, the GDP. That's pretty much it. But of course the IMF are blaming US President Trump for creating uncertainty and for the UK's GDP forecast not being positive. But they said by next year, the growth will be only 0.3%. Rachel Reeves has come out and she welcomes the report and said the government's trade deals were protecting jobs, boosting investment and cutting prices. Hold on. Does she mean increasing prices? No, she said cutting prices, boosting investment. Not really. I mean, a tiny amount. Is it protecting jobs? Do you think your job's protected? Not sure about that. But the one thing they always leave to the small print right at the end of the article. I mean, this is right at the end. Look, there it is. Here it is. The Office for National Statistics said that inflation rose by a whopping 3.5% And the IMF said that this rise in inflation will last until somewhere later this year. It's not going to come back down till 2026. I actually don't think it will come down in 2026. I think they're in a debt spiral. I think we're going to see higher interest rates for a lot longer. I know people don't like it when I say these things because, you know, a lot of these forecasts are accurate purely because I think it's because I've studied so much history. I've read so much economic history. I've read every single, I mean, guys, look how much I read. That is probably 5% of what I've read today. Every single day. Books, history books, economics books. I read all the white papers. I read all the stuff up from the universities and everything. I just read non-stop. So that's how I can kind of forecast stuff and figure stuff out. A couple of other things we had then. Farage, is interesting that we're seeing all of this news about Nigel Farage at the moment. Very interesting. Even from the BBC, we're seeing it from the Metro. I would have never thought the Metro would do a positive sort of article on Farage and the Reform Party, but they have. Farage is looking to copy Elon Musk's Doge plans. He's announced that Reform is going to implement his own Doge unit after he's learned and taken inspiration from Elon Musk. He said this is when they win in 4 years' time. Still a long time though, isn't it? Under this Labour government. It's a long time yet. 4 more years. Oh my goodness. 4 years of Keir Starmer. Give me a like for that or give me a dislike if you don't agree. If you're a Keir Starmer lover, please let me know in the comments so I can ban you for life. I mean, so I can just be aware who that is. So what's he said? We want to make it easier to have children. This is Farage's big one today. BBC did a very positive piece on this. I don't quite know why, because they love the Labour Party. So why they would do a big positive piece on Farage, I'm not sure. So what's he said? He wants to make it easier for people to have children, as he confirms his party would back more generous tax breaks for married people and scrap the 2-child benefit limit. He said he wants to help people not because he wants a benefits culture, but because it would make things easier for lower paid workers. He said he'll also reverse the government's cuts of the winter fuel payment withdrawn from 10 million pensioners, so he'll give that back. He said that the measures would be paid for. Now this is good. I always look for this line, how these new measures will be paid for. It's always what I look for whenever I read any of this. And usually there is no line. If you notice this, you saw this with the Tories, the Conservative Party of the UK, you saw it with Labour, you saw it with the Greens, you saw it with the Lib Dems. They never put in how it would be paid for. But I think this is quite interesting. This is the first time I've seen it in a long time. It says the measures would be paid for by scrapping net zero climate measures, stopping hotel accommodation for asylum seekers, ending diversity and equity initiatives in the public sector, and cutting the number of, what on earth is this word? Quongos. I've never heard this word before, and I have a pretty wide vocabulary, but I need to brush up, don't I? I'm not quite Shakespeare yet with his 20,000 vocabulary. But he said these are being funded by taxpayers, but not directly controlled by central government. Interesting. In addition to raising the personal allowance from everyone from 12,500 to 20,000, they also propose to exempt one partner in a marriage from paying tax on the first 25,000 of their income. I think these are all pretty good proposals. I mean, we'd have to know exactly what he means by the equality initiatives, because if he means all the woke stuff, great. But if he means some other things that could be kind of extreme in nature, then we'd have to look at that. Obviously, we want equality for people. But apart from that, there's nothing too crazy in there. But let's have a look at what this economist said then at the Institute for Fiscal Studies. He said increasing the annual income tax allowance to £20,000 would cost between 50 and 80 billion pounds a year, depending on the details. So again, we're going to have to find out exactly how that would be funded. as it stands, I don't think they've really set out how they would pay for such big giveaways, he said. Yeah, I think he's probably right in that. I mean, it all sounds great, but exactly how is that going to be paid for? I think that is the question around all of that. So I think we've kind of covered most of the stuff I wanted to talk about today. Make sure, ladies and gents, have a look at this program. Even if you think it's not, you're not interested in it, it's absolutely huge. It is insane. And there's a five payment plan on it. You can do a payment plan, or you can get one course or the other. You don't need to get both. I recommend both because one's a sort of main program, sets all the foundation. It's huge though, I've got to say. It is enormous. It's all around investing, pensions, gold and silver investing, teach you the history of it, everything, right through to where we are today in this current system and how this system is crumbling. It sort of gives you a forecast and shows you where it's about to go down and what it's going to be replaced with. But then it goes into all the other stuff, some more complex stuff. It will cover trading, ratios, it will cover pensions, how you actually build your positions and diversify and all the other stuff. And I'll be honest, you could, if you really wanted to, you could go and find all this stuff from advisors, financial advisors everywhere, but it's basically just going to save you weeks and weeks, if not months of your life. I mean, how many hours went into it, I don't know, all of my own research and time. So that's really what you're saving. You're getting a sort of experts' opinions and advice around everything. So, all right, thank you so much for being online. Really appreciate you. Take care, God bless, and I'll see you on the next video.